63. How are you doing, Raul?
Doing very, very well. How about you?
Really, really well. I'm really excited about this episode. This is one that we pre-recorded a few weeks ago when we were all in town. We have Darko, who is here in the chat. So, hey, Darko, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. And what a delight. I think this was probably one of my favorite recording sessions. Number one, because we were doing it in person. And yeah, and Darko has just such amazing energy. Like, no matter how tired you are in a conversation with Darko, you immediately get energized. So it was absolutely amazing to do this in person in Seattle at your studio. And so, yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing the edited version. By the way, we spoke for more than an hour, I think.
Yeah, it was getting close
Well over an
to
hour.
80 minutes.
Yeah. And so I don't know how the edited version has kind of come out, but looking forward to it.
We'll just hit that hour mark here. I really like how we had three main segments to the conversation. First, we talked about Build on Live, Darko's show. We talked about the different platforms for community engagement, and then we transitioned into cost optimization and how on one hand it's not as Darko, but it's not the sexiest of topics. But on the other hand, well, Ro, I really liked what you said about that.
Yeah, so I think if I remember what I said about it, it's definitely not one of the sexiest exercises there, but every time you can actually turn it into a win or little wins for yourself when you get this thrill or a rush by saving $10,000 there or $100,000 somewhere else. Like if you start making that your mission, I mean, you can make it an exciting exercise for yourself. But yeah, it is. That's kind of why I've kind of been doing this for this many years. But it was really good to get Darko's perspective on this as well. And as Darko just says, let me see if I can put this up in the banner here. It is the important test of topics, and I couldn't agree more.
Thank you. And then, yeah, it was really great when, especially with optimization, then taking Darko's perspective. He has an awesome collection of old equipment. And in those days, you had to optimize because you very quickly ran out of RAM, ran out of compute. But now we can throw money at the problem, which is great in an environment where there's VC money floating around. But then that runs out, and then throwing money at the problem is not ideal. And then it calls for a different kind of optimization, which is what we talk about.
Correct. I mean, you can generally throw money at a problem when it comes to innovation and trying many bets and hoping that one or two of them will succeed. But in something that's running as a regular system, as a regular production system that's managing predictable workloads, there's no reason why you should be throwing away money against those kind of workloads. So it's better to kind of optimize one and then use the extra cash to try and make more bets for your long-term success.
And speaking about bets, at the end of the conversation, we talk about generative AI, which
Absolutely.
is a big bet that we're all seeing where we fall. So I'm looking forward to that. So I think without further ado, we will roll the tape, if I can still use that expression. And yeah, thanks again, Darko, for your time.
Thank you, Darko.
Well, hello, friends.
Welcome to the studio. This is studio version 2.3. So I think major number means structural changes like paint, and then minor version is equipment, lights, that sort of thing.
Positioning, holding cameras in your hand.
I just wish the people would see beyond the cameras. By the way, you never see a studio beyond the cameras. Trust me. But it is amazing. I love it. I love the setup. I love the moodiness of it. I love the colors. Keep at it.
Thank you.
So, Darko, thanks again for coming on the show. We wanted to talk a little bit about all the amazing stuff that you've been doing with Build on AWS, and tell us a little bit more about that.
All right, so Build on AWS is kind of a brand that we have, and it's this thing we use for a lot of different Builder-Centric content, right? We have a whole written part of Build-on, which is a platform for both Amazonians and community members to do things. But my part of Build on AWS is the live stream things.
Right.
So I've been speaking to this with Steven a long time ago that I enjoy live streaming. I feel like I cannot record a video for the life of me. Because if I have a script, if I have a thing I need to keep up with, and then I just try to do it, it takes me hours to do one thing. But
True.
if you give me a chance, Darko, the camera is on speak, okay, and then I'll just do it. So I find that it's easier for me, that's number one. And number two, I find that the audience engagement on a live video is just almost as fulfilling as you can have it in person.
Yeah.
Right? It's the closest thing I have to that person. So Build on Live is basically a series of either live shows or live events that we do on Twitch.
Got it.
And I am trying my best to make them to be very much what we like to call builder focused. That means we're talking about technology, community, open source, cloud, and anything in between.
Got it.
Not a vendor specific, not even a product specific, but just everything that people could care about.
Got it. And so how do you go about deciding what content to put in Build.aws? Is there an engagement with the community in the sense that they say, hey, we would love to see XYZ, or is it more that there's a whole lot of stuff internally from within AWS that you want to kind of put out? So what's the decision-making framework for that?
So the answer to both of your questions is yes. But the way it actually works, so we have in mind developer relations, we have a concept of a content wave.
Right.
So within the year of 2023, we have a bunch of different content waves focusing on different technologies, right?
Got it.
From open source, machine learning, data, cost optimization, reliability, and a bunch of other waves. And they're kind of like temporally, they're temporal. They're like in a specific month.
Got it.
They're periodical. And based off of those, we decide, okay, let's do an event all about machine learning.
Got it.
But we also ask our audience. So after every show I do, I have a survey. I just send it to our audience and say, hey, listen, please tell us what you think about our show. But more importantly, tell us what you would love to see in the future, because that's what we do. And then we take a whole list of suggestions. And sometimes it's a funny suggestion. Oh, can you talk about instant random technology here, right?
Right.
Or can you just do more jokes? But sometimes it's like, hey, I would love to learn how to get started with networking.
Got it.
So we take all that feedback and look at like, hey, how can we align this to the content wave? And then we plan out a couple of months of content as much as we can.
Sounds pretty interesting.
And speaking of engagement, congrats on hitting the 8,000. That was a pretty cool milestone.
Oh yeah, I have 8,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I actually got an email yesterday from LinkedIn. It's my 13th birthday on LinkedIn.
Wow.
2010. I still remember when I opened my account there. And all of a sudden I have 8,000 people following me. The thing is, I did not even notice that. I was just one day perusing LinkedIn, like 8,000 people clicked the follow the bald man button. So that's amazing. And I think LinkedIn has become such a great social network.
Yeah.
For a lot of engagements, and like most of my actual interactions and chats with people come from LinkedIn, because I feel like on LinkedIn people are not afraid to message you.
Correct.
And then message me and say, hey Darko, thank you for doing this, or hey Darko, I think you suck, or something. And can you help me? Can you not? So yeah.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. How do you compare the different platforms? I think we haven't, like for us, I think Twitch, I want to do more on Twitch. I think that's a really neat community that we haven't, we stream on Twitch, but I want to do more there. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting with YouTube, you get good great reach, maybe funny comments. LinkedIn is, much more personal, it seems, and more, professional. How do you compare and contrast, or how do you deal with engagement on different platforms?
So my experience is that Twitch is this, I can't even call it, like it would be a meetup, right? Twitch is this kind of a meetup, or even not a meetup. It's like this community workspace where you go and you talk about something interesting, something educational, something entertaining, or something just fun. And you have this like of a very relaxed and personable relationship with your audience. And because it's all in real time,
right.
You keep chatting with them. Sometimes you just stop doing what you're doing and you just talk to people. So it feels like sometimes I was doing like live streams on my own channel where I was building something, and then a couple of people come in and we started discussing something, and I just stopped doing what I'm doing and just chat to them, just speak to them. They're chatting in chat, and I'm just talking to them. So it has this very much an informal vibe. So Twitch is great for community building because what is fascinating about any content creation is that you create this weird parasocial relationship with your audience where they're sitting there, they're watching you every day, every week, whatever, and they think you're friends. Now, I'm not saying we're not friends, but we've never met. and I find that so humbling where I met people who've watched my shows on Twitch and they know me from Twitch and we feel like we know each other. I'm like, oh, I know your username, I know you. And we just chit chat. So for that aspect, Twitch is wonderful for this two-way communication. However, I think YouTube and like on-demand video platforms have a more of a educational aspect to them, where you can create more tightly tailored made videos, like more to the point, short, and actually getting to the point faster rather than watching me stumble through documentation and trying to figure stuff out. So I actually like to combine the two. I will spend time on Twitch trying to build something, creating a demo, creating a thing I want to do on YouTube.
Right.
While I prepare it on Twitch, and I get this kind of discussion with people, inputs, outputs, and then I go and record a separate video for YouTube that was based off my work created on Twitch.
Got it. So it's more, it feels like YouTube is more a follow along kind of
Correct.
Platform where if you wanted someone to actually do something and, kind of press pause, learn something, then do something else and follow along, that feels like a much better platform to do it.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, because trying to follow along on Twitch is possible, but as soon as you stop following,
Right.
you're done because it's all live. I mean, there is a recording afterwards, but it is not as fun. So unless you make an effort to keep waiting for people, like having people who are in a workshop or something like that, I think Twitch is much more suited for more of an informal, let's work together type of a thing. So I've actually ran live streams where it was just me doing my job, and that's it. People just watch me do my work, which is really interesting.
And
so
in a sense, they might be, you're almost like the coworker down the hall, where you're just another presence, you're another person, you're coding on stuff, you're accessible if they wanted to. It doesn't mean they're gonna. You're just like they could tap on the door and say, "Darko, do you have a minute?" Right? But most of the time, it's just nice to know someone else is working too.
Absolutely. And even I sometimes I advertise this as like, let's work together stream. So you do your work, I'll do mine, and we'll just talk about it. And I will basically like, I don't know, like I have to review a blog post or write a blog post. So I will sit there and just type along or test stuff out, build a demo. While some other people are doing their own thing and they just kind of peek, oh, cool, Darko is still working. So it's a nice little like, it's a cozy platform. I can't explain it, right? YouTube is more direct and it's more, has a purpose, right?
Right.
I'm watching this video so I can learn this and this and that. While Twitch is like, I'm watching Darko because I enjoy watching him as a person and I get to learn something along the way. And yeah.
Let's double or deep dive a little bit more on LinkedIn. Like personally, I found LinkedIn to be far more engaging with the right kind of audience. Like I think the audience fit seems, at least in our world, seems much better of a fit. What's your experience been with AWS customers in general?
So the great thing about LinkedIn is one of those platforms that's universal.
Right.
So while on Twitter, I will not find most people I work with on Twitter.
Yeah.
The same goes for like Twitch. But LinkedIn, I believe most of the people I know and work with have a LinkedIn account. Correct. It's just because it's the professional network.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a place where I can find people who are interested in technology, in communities, in certification, in job hunting, and everything in between. So this is where I usually get a lot of good questions. So where people are actually trying to learn something or get me to help them with something, and that is all good. And I that's why I think LinkedIn is just a great platform. Of course, it has its bugs and problems and all that fun stuff, but I think just for some kind of a network building, it is such a great platform. I think the whole point is just like any other social media, you just need to keep on using it.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the more people come back to you and all that stuff.
Tell us a little bit about the background of Build on AWS. How did it come to be?
So, Build on AWS is a live streaming endeavor. Became out of the need that we need to do more content, right? Pandemic started, and as a lot of things have changed with the pandemic.
Sure.
So we have decided to, you know what? Let's do some video. And I decided myself, I'm just gonna go and live stream because why not? Never live stream in my life. Let's try to do it. I feel like it's a great thing. So what has happened is I started live streaming twice a week.
Okay.
2 times a week, I would just sit down for an hour and a half, and just live stream some technology, some AWS, non-AWS, whatever. And I found it to be immensely interesting. It's just like, oh, this is great. This is fun. This is so good. And I can get my message across. And what happened here is I started building a group of people who want to do the same. And we decided like, okay, cool. Let's live stream stuff together. Let's create a live streaming program at AWS. And with a lot of people in the back end, we've kind of built a whole framework and the approach to live streaming. What's the best way to do it? What's the worst way to do it? And out of that, a new incentive out of developer relations came up, and that's called Build on Live.
Right.
And we wrote this, of course, it's Amazon, so we wrote the PR FAQ.
Right.
And it's basically a document outlining the show and the program, and with all the frequently asked questions, potentially frequently asked questions. Yeah. And then we made this thing. And we started doing it because we found that developer-centric, friendly content said in a developer voice.
Right.
I use developer here, but it's builder. A builder-friendly voice goes a long way, especially on a platform like Twitch.
Got it.
Yeah.
How does that conflict or not conflict with AWS's traditional approach, which says it depends for pretty much everything? And here you're actually saying, if you're building something like X, Y, or Z, then you should do A, B, C, or that's one of the best approaches to do it. How does it conflict at all where it comes to typical AWS service teams' responses whenever you ask them, tell me how to do X, Y, Z? And they'll be like, it depends. Here's the API, you do whatever you want with it. And here you're actually going live and you're saying, I'm going to build something, and this is how I do it, and here's why.
So I think giving credit to the wonderful service teams, I had a sign for a long time printed out that says it depends.
Right.
So I would go on stream, somebody asked me, I just bring it up. Or I have a little asterisk printed out when I'm talking about something, I lift it up next to my head and I say a thing. And I say, these are my words, just so you know. I don't think it conflicts with what we are doing. The huge amount of work to the service team that goes is that they need to cater to everybody. Right? They cater to this from the massive enterprise to the government to a startup to whatever. Right. And when I do things on the internet, I do them as I will do it. And of course, I spend effort and time to learn how people in my area of expertise would do it. So I do it correctly, hopefully. Sometimes not. Yeah. And then I say like, okay, this is how I approach it. And that really works. Of course, it sometimes for big companies, it can be like, oh, what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? I don't know. How do you think our customers do it?
Yeah.
Sometimes using Twitch for a raw builder experience goes a long way because we may launch a new product.
Right.
And they say, what do you think about it? I don't know. I'll go on Twitch and live stream me building something with it, with all the warts and all.
Got it.
So I find problems with it. I find issues with it. I find great things about it. So, and I think that works great because it gives a first-hand view of how our customers may use it, how people may dig through the documentation.
Right.
And I've been getting a lot of very positive feedback from service teams. So far, it's all good.
Well, and it's really neat that it forces you to actually use the product and learn, because I think everyone's had this experience where you just start with the documentation that's there, and then you go down the rabbit hole, and all of a sudden you find, the approach that I'm taking was abandoned in 2019 in favor of this other thing that's only documented in Discord. You're like, oh shoot.
And it's also like just following documentation is a thing. So like I spend a significant amount of time trying to figure out how to do something in the documentation. So
Right.
there was this service came out a few years back, and I was one of the first people who tested it. I didn't do it on stream, but I did it just off the stream. But my first feedback was like, your documentation is not good. I as a
polite.
I as an engineer, as an Amazonian, I couldn't figure it out. How do you think other people do it?
Right.
So sometimes even just that whole process, people don't know where to start. Like you're building a serverless application that's going to serve Star Wars quotes. What do you do? What's the first thing you do? You go to check the documentation. What documentation? I don't know. Let's figure it out. So that process makes it also so that the wonderful people on chat, hi Twitch, if you're watching this, people on Twitch are like, oh yeah, they're just normal humans like all of us, right? Not everything is super polished.
So, does the audience ever come back and say, hey Darko, there's a better way to do this, why don't you try something else?
Yes.
Does that happen often?
And that's the best live stream. I can recall a couple of months back, I was building a demo for one of the blog posts. It was about, I think it was about deploying Python applications on AWS.
Okay.
And it was simple Python on EC2. And I was building it out and I was trying to figure it out, hashing some stuff out. Stuff were working, stuff wasn't working. And then one of my viewers came back and said, Darko, you should do it this way. And I said like, okay. I should do it that way. And it was way better than whatever I thought about. It was just perfect. It was on point. I'm like, yes, please give me. And that bit of code ended up in a blog post because the audience told me, no, do it this way. This is better. Of course, made sure that it is actually better, but it definitely was.
I remember that stream. I was watching that. That was really fun.
Yeah. It's a couple of hours, like 2 or 3 hours or something like that.
And I wish there was a way where you could have I think we talked about it, like a code editor that was kind of live. I kept trying to like screenshot your code and OCR it, and then follow along. So we gotta figure out a better workflow for that.
We were talking about that, and I think it's a great idea. Just having people can just read only, look at your code. I've actually spoken to the folks behind Code Catalyst, the people who build this entire IDE platform for a bunch of different things, and I asked them, can we make a read-only VS Code session through Code Catalyst? It's currently not possible. But hey, I threw that out. But that would be great. Like if people can actually see my code without having to look at my screen, but maybe they can look at it on their own, would be a really great collaboration platform. I think I haven't explored it fully yet, but that could be an option somewhere down the line to make it work that way.
Well, and imagine if the time points were git commit, so I can say, let me fork based on 37 minutes and 10 seconds in, and try it.
That's amazing.
That'd be fun.
That'd be amazing. I mean, of course, there are ways to implement this, but you want to make sure it's secure. You want to make sure you don't give people access to more things that you want to. And also because it's Twitch, people love to troll. You want to make sure they can only look at your stuff and not do anything worse than that. So
that's another one. Because I've always thought about, I always worry, I think through all the windows that are going to be on my screen. But then I think, okay, what happens if I accidentally expose a private key or something like that, right? Because someone's going to screenshot it and explore.
Yeah, they will immediately do it. So ultimately, if you're live streaming, you always need to have multiple screens. That's the golden rule. As much monitors as you can. I actually did a couple of streams on a single monitor, and that was a problem because anytime I had to do something with a key, I would have to unplug my laptop from the capture card and do it, and then plug it back in.
Okay.
And that was just like, it takes you out. It's okay, but it's not the best thing ever. So ultimately, a couple of advice for anybody doing stuff on live streams. Temporary keys, always. Never use anything that will last more than a day.
Yeah.
And multiple monitors.
That's good advice.
Yeah. So
one thing that I was curious about, and this is specifically with developer-centric content, I've always wondered in this time when trying to retain mindshare is such a flaky thing because people have retention spans of maybe 30 seconds or attention spans of about 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah. You do recordings which are 2 or 3 hours long, and then there are some shorter ones. Where do you guys measure kind of the sweet spot of where content becomes most engaging? What is most effective? What have you found so far?
So I would say that this really depends on a few factors. Of course, the content needs to be good, right? The content
Right.
you present, you do, has to be fun, engaging, and also it has to be useful,
Right.
right? If I go there and talk about something that, like, my audience doesn't care about, they just wouldn't really. If I talk about deploying AIX on PowerPC servers, nobody
Right.
cares. It's maybe interesting, but it's not something that people care for. So it needs to be useful. One of the things that I found is that the person presenting it is really important, right? If you have a really good presenter, or if you have a guest, they're really good, engaging, entertaining guest, they can keep the audience's attention longer.
Got it.
But the sweet spot is also depends what you want to do, right? For short videos, I would say anything between short videos with an outcome,
Yeah.
something technical. It's somewhere between 7 and 15 minutes. If you want to achieve something, here's how you do it. And I think that works really good. For live streams, that can be as long as you want. I did 7-hour, 8-hour live streams. And of course, not everybody watches the whole thing,
True.
but sufficiently amount of people do, and that's fine.
It's so neat that we think that we're in a time where we can do that. And kind of zooming out to the twitch.tv/AWS, that's a TV station. I mean,
It is a TV station.
It's what are the approximate size of it? Like, how do you compare it to something traditional? Like, it's really big. Like, I mean, you've had moments where you've had many tens of thousands on there.
Yeah, exactly. So our Twitch channel, so twitch.tv/AWS, has 99,000 followers. Hit the follow button if you're watching along.
Push it over the threshold.
Push it over to 100K. We need that 100K. So now that seems a huge number, but those are not the numbers you see on a typical live stream,
Right.
not even close, right? And it's like on any day, depending on the time of the day, of course, you get anything between 50 and 100 viewers consistently, right? Maybe like 500 unique viewers per stream. If you're doing big events and you invest in some marketing, you can get huge numbers, right? So you get a chance to reach a lot of people, but it is important that you know who you're reaching to. If the audience is too big, like if I have 10,000 people actively watching me and 10,000 people in chat, the closeness of Twitch gets lost. So
Yeah.
there is a sweet spot on Twitch where if you go over a certain number, it's no longer a Twitch stream, it's a TV show.
Broadcast.
Well, it's a broadcast. And then like you as a host can't even talk to them. They don't feel well talking back to you because it's just a whole mess in chat.
Right.
So I think it needs to be kind of a balance between actually doing something like with a decent amount of people, or just like trying to get your message across to as much people as you want without caring too much. Is that message reaching them actually? So it is.
That's an interesting balance, right? You have to strike. You want it to be still approachable and still, not. And it can be too polished, right? It can be too,
Produced.
too produced, too marketed, I suppose, and you lose and not that that's a bad thing, but it's a different thing.
Yeah. It's a thing where you have to kind of find that good balance of what really works, and then I've had one of my best live streams was with like 50 people on it. It's a small group of people, but everybody was active. Everybody was chatting. Everybody was throwing their comments. We're fixing stuff together. It's just great. Twitch is an interactive platform.
Right.
The whole point is that you are not talking at them, you're talking with them. So if you are using Twitch as just a platform to post a video where you talk at people, you may as well upload the video to YouTube, right?
True.
So use Twitch as intended to get this back and forth with your audience. That's why different kinds of show work differently on Twitch.
So what's in store for the near-term future of Build-on Live?
So we have a couple of things going on, right? We have our big Build-on events, like last week, as of this recording. We had a Build-on Generative AI show, which was a big old show.
Cool.
It's 6 hours long, all about, well, not generative AI, sorry, AI and open source. It was anything about open source and AI. So we had anything from, of course, generative AI to some non-generative AI to also everything in between. So that was a big thing. We're having another event in September, which is going to be focused all about cost optimization.
Awesome.
Yes, because, well, it's the year of
Yeah.
2023. You need to make sure to get that cost optimized, right?
Correct.
So we're working on that. I currently, since we finished this last week, we have just kicked off the planning for the one after. We're gonna have to see how to make. And I know Cloudfix works a lot of when it comes to cost optimization. So it's a great topic, but it's not the sexiest of topics. It's a lot of dashboards, and I'm trying to figure out how to make cost optimization interesting and how to make it exciting to people. So that's going to be I don't say it's a challenge, but that's a thing in front of me.
Yeah, I think what I've learned about cost optimization, like you said, it's not one of those glamorous things. It's one of the, I think if I can put it bluntly, it's the janitorial work of, just keeping all of your cloud infrastructure working efficiently.
Exactly.
And yes, it's thankless in a lot of different ways, but I think what's most effective, the way I've kind of learned, I've been doing this for almost 10 plus years, the way I actually get a rush out of doing this is by actually realizing savings. Like when you can go and say, hey, today I just spent 15 minutes, and in the 15 minutes, I saved, $25,000,
Yes.
right? That's the kick. That's the rush that you get out of doing it. And so then it becomes this game where it's like, okay, what's the next big thing I can do? And, like you guys are both wearing Mario t-shirts, and I am kind of, feeling out of place over here. But taking that analogy, the obstacle course that you go through is all the objections that your team is going to come up with and tell you why what you're trying to do is not possible, or just trying to work with the infrastructure team, making sure that everything that you're doing is auditable, traceable, and that you are keeping all these different interests in check. You're trying to kind of navigate through this really complex setup and still achieving these big savings.
Yes.
That's the game.
It
Like
is. It is.
if you make that the goal, it's like, have a bar that says how much have we saved, and on a per hour basis of doing this exercise, have that counted. That's fun. That's exciting.
So in Mario terms, this is like a speed run. Where you just,
Speed
I never
Exactly.
knew you could get to this level in 92 seconds. That's
Yeah.
I must say, when it comes to cost optimization, it's and you can quote me on this. If you're using AI, people notice. If you're using cost optimization, nobody notices.
Yes.
But if you're not using cost optimization, everybody notices.
notices.
So cost optimization or optimizing for cost is only noticeable when you're not using it, while other technologies or other approaches, other procedures, mechanisms are only noticeable when you use them.
Correct.
This one completely goes invisible as soon as you start implementing some aspects of cost optimization, at least to most people. So
Yeah, and I think that's where having the ability to showcase what you truly saved and making that visible becomes really, really important. It's one of the reasons why in Cloudfix, for example, we were thinking about, hey, what kind of UI should you have? And having used so many tools out there, half the tools you feel like, hey, I need to have a PhD in AWS services to navigate and get kind of some visualization going. And then we basically landed on this very simple thing where it says, here's your potential savings and here's your realized savings. And those are the only two things that you will see on that screen, because that is the only thing that matters. It matters how much you saved, truly, and be able to audit it and showcase it.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that's going to be happening is an event or live event focused on cost savings. We have a bunch of other stuff happening. We have a weekly generative AI show, because of course we do. We have a weekly show, just a weekly show. We have a show called Build-on Answered, which is for all of my friends who love to use Stack Overflow. Right. So on AWS, we have a Stack Overflow collective where people can post questions about AWS. So this is a bi-weekly show where my friends Julie and Kobus go and they answer questions on Stack Overflow, which has been really popular. We have a couple of more things happening. We actually have a new show. I think it's only episode 2 or 3 right now. We call it Winging It. It is like a 2-hour live stream where myself, my colleague Brian or Linda or Seth, 2 of us go on stream and we try to do a thing. Like we set out a goal. Let's build an application that will use AI to sort documents, and we do nothing else. This is it. We just let's figure it out. And then you spend 2 hours trying to figure out how would you do it with zero preparation. And that's usually a great, interesting thing for our audience, because they actually see us struggle.
Yeah.
So it is such a fun thing.
Oh, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to all these amazing shows. And yeah, we would love to collaborate on some ideas for all the cloud cost optimization stuff.
Yes, I will be in touch with
And
Steven on that one.
That would definitely be very, very welcome as well. So looking forward to it.
But also like for reInvent, we're hopefully going to have a build on reInvent one this year. So that's a planning thing.
Awesome.
And I'm trying to kind of spice stuff up to make it a bit more interesting, make it a bit more kind of engaging to our audience. Not just we did it last year; it was very successful. But I want to see if we can push the bar a bit more. And one of the things we want to do is introduce some funner elements to technology. Right? It's great talking about technology. It's also great building stuff on stream. But also we want to do something like you mentioned speedrunning. Mm-hmm. So I have this idea where I want to have people speedrun a bit of technology. So speedrun a serverless application. You start with nothing, with a text editor, and build yourself a serverless application that serves Star Wars quotes, whatever. And to see how fast can you do it.
That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, right? Of course, you need to know it. It's okay that you prepare up front, so you know what you need to do. But I want you to see speed typing, clicking, deploying, all of those fun things to see how fast you can do it.
Now, do you have access to an AI to help you, or do you have notes?
You
or is
can.
this
You
just-
have
Whisperer.
You have
Yeah.
Code Whisperer. You can do all of those things. So I plan to do at least maybe one or two of those to see if I can get willing sacrifices to do it for us as well on the stream.
I'll be on one. Count me in. We'll be there.
Because there are people who speedrun Excel.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I
like
did not know
there's a speedrunning category in Excel, and that means people get a data set, and they need to do specific visualization with that data set in the shortest amount of time. So you will see this person just loads an Excel sheet and just start hammering away. It's like, whoa.
One of my old finance professors, he spent some time in some kind of investment banking or something beforehand, and watching him use Excel, it was like, I didn't know this was possible.
Exactly. It's sometimes people who are so used to a tool, and like it gets so interesting because you see this scale, you go beyond like just Excel, just like how tuned this person is. So that's one of the plans. I'm going to see if I can do some tech cloud speedrunning. We'll see. That's still a planning thing, but trying something like that, a bit more interactivity and all that fun stuff.
I'm happy.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry because CloudFix is AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost-saving opportunities and not just fines. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part of all, it works non-stop. Stop overspending on AWS and click on the button to start saving now.
Thank you so much. We're definitely going to try out something. But yeah, that's the plan so far for this year. And then hopefully if you, the audience, or other people watching this are interested in more, I am always happy to get your inputs and see what else we can do.
There's a link right here floating.
Somewhere,
There it is.
somewhere under our faces. You're going to find to click on it or type it out. So.
So speaking of AI, what are your thoughts on it in general? I mean, it's amazing how we're entering this. We're definitely all in this new era where we know that. But then beyond that, what does it mean? Like, what advice would you give to people just starting programming now? Is it?
I heard this great comment by one of my colleagues, and I'm going to put a little asterisk next to my face saying what I'm about to say is my opinions. I don't belong. I work for AWS, but these are not opinions reflected by AWS potentially. The biggest thing about AI is whenever you can, don't use it, especially generative AI. Hear me out. People tend to use AI for plenty of things they potentially shouldn't, right? And that's just because it's a new technology. Everybody wants to explore it to see if it's going to work. I had this discussion with my colleagues. Would the generative AI, would a large language model, an LLM, be better at chess than a chess algorithm? It wouldn't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't. It would not. It would potentially beat something. It would be okay, but it would be not efficient for that. So if you can find a tailored algorithm or a tailored system to do what you need to do, use that rather than AI ML. However, in the wonderful world of large language models and code generation, I am excited about that. Very much so excited. Because I said in the beginning, I'm something they used to call a systems administrator. I used to build systems. I used to install operating systems, set up storage. I was never good at coding. I could write myself out of a hole with a batch script, but that's about it. And then now when I need to build something, it takes me a lot more effort to write a function or a class that will upload the file to S3.
Right.
I can potentially Google stuff. I can search it on the internet and try, copy, paste. Maybe it works. But now with tools such as Code Whisperer or with Copilot from GitHub, oh my God, that helps me do stuff I couldn't do before because like I just do a function, it does it for me. Even with that, people feel, oh, it's going to take our jobs. My opinion of this one, Darko's opinion of this one is that it's not going to take away jobs. Hear me out. The software is just going to get more complicated. We just have more resources to write more sophisticated and more complex pieces of software because we have the AI tools to help us. So that means you're still going to need the same amount of engineers, but they're just going to write better, more complex code.
Well, and the stack will get a lot tall. I mean, even thinking about when Docker came out, now we move around operating systems like they were just a library or DLL, right?
Exactly.
And now we move around a whole operating system just to get a dependency to work right.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different take on the generative AI stuff right now, which is I feel like you really, really need to know your stuff inside out to be able to leverage the generative AI tools to be effective in what you want it to do. There are a lot of people who come into a particular domain without any prior knowledge, without any hands-on expertise, without knowing what outcome you really want out of that setup. And they're like, oh, this is just going to make me 2x more productive or 3x more productive, but that's not the case. You can't leverage the generative AI stuff unless you really know your subject, your domain really well, and you know what you want as an output, because the prompt engineering or whatever else you want, it's got to be so specific that you need that expertise. So it's not like it makes someone right off the street a brilliant coder, or it makes someone right off the street a domain expert in a particular subject, or makes them effective. You need to be an expert, and then you can be twice as productive as you're using these tools.
So let me get my Eastern European out of me. A fool with a tool is still a fool, right? No matter how great of a tool it is, if you don't know how to use it, you can have the best
100%.
hammer in the world, and if you don't know how to build a house, you still don't know how to build a house.
I think that where it will go eventually is, I mean, there's certain classes of chess tournaments, right, where you can use any AIs you want, and the human is almost synthesizing advice from different AIs, from their own programs, from their own simulations, and they are this huge, organizer of information and the ultimate, arbiter and decision maker. And like I said, you have to know to some extent how it works, but at the same time, I don't know assembly language, and the critique that I would have gotten when I was learning programming is you'll never really know what's going on, and it's true to an extent, but at some point you can treat it as a given and as a substrate that you can build upon.
Yeah.
So at some point I'm sure I'll be wagging my finger at my kids saying, you don't really know what's happening. Why do I need to?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. If you go back 40 years ago when people wrote assembly, those engineers, those developers still needed to know the same things today's engineers know. They need to know how to do proper conditionals. They need to know how to do proper loops, and all of that logics and algorithms needed to be known to an extent.
Yeah.
So that hasn't changed. You just have better tools.
Yeah.
But you still have to know those things, even though you no longer have to write LDA and LDX and all that fun stuff.
Well, but I guess it moves into this philosophical realm of what really is intelligence and what's reasoning. Because I hear this, I'm very excited about LLMs, and then people say, okay, they're just predicting the next word. It's not doing anything specific. But I can't convince myself that that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that all of my reasoning faculties are just special abstractions that are helping me do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you look down into an LLM, right? We love to add personality to anything. We love to humanize everything we work with. That's why robots are cute, because we think they're actual things. The same goes for an LLM. An LLM doesn't know what it's talking about. It's not aware of what it is talking about. It is, as you said, just predicting the next word. That's when you go to your favorite chat GPT and it's typing out an answer. That's not a clever trick for it to like a typewriter effect. That's how it's actually literally producing words. It happens to be very good at it.
Right.
But it's not intelligent. It's not smart. It is just kind of using the thing it knows in the best way possible. And to an extent, as you say, it's kind of something we do. But I think the difference between us and LLMs, we're not taking a word ahead. We're checking just maybe a couple of sentences or maybe a day
I guess
ahead.
we want to think that our knowledge has some structural representation that's, but does it? Or can that emerge within an LLM? And that's...
I don't know. I don't know enough about that to see where that is going. But one of the things I can definitely say about generative AI and the point we're at right now is something my colleague Mike said. 6 months ago, we wouldn't be talking about this.
True.
It's so fast. Like 6 months ago, this wasn't a topic at all. Like not even on the blip. So I think what's happening right now is we're getting so much new things. So many things are changing. I don't know where it's gonna go. I'm kind of optimistic, and I'm always a technology optimist. I feel like this is gonna be a very good thing, and it's gonna democratize a lot of the stuff we do in technology, because it's gonna give a lot of more people room to actually, instead of worrying about how to write a class to upload a file to S3,
Right.
you can actually think about the glue that sticks all of those classes together. And that thing currently is not possible to generate, right? I can't go to Code Catalyst, write me a program that solves my problems, because it wouldn't be able to do so. But I do think LLMs, with the appropriate, and people on the video, every time you hear prompt engineering, take a drink. With the appropriate prompt engineering can do wonders.
Yeah.
So I want to give one example. Our friends over at AI21, they're a firm from Israel. They have a language model called Jurassic, I believe. That's the name. And they've built a Rick and Morty episode generator from an LLM. Now, they didn't train the LLM specifically to Rick and Morty.
Right.
They didn't fine-tune it or anything. What they're doing is having this big old LLM, and they just take a really big prompt.
Which is, this is what Rick and Morty is. This is their humor.
And also like the description of 10 episodes in the prompt. They literally pass, here's examples of 10 episodes. Please create a prompt based off of this. So no changes to the LLM, no fine tuning, nothing. Just take the LLM and pass it a big old prompt, and then it works. So it is something that's, I love the flexibility of that.
Well, I'll have to show you my, I've got ChatGPT integrated into my Emacs setup.
Okay.
It's
wow.
really cool.
Emacs.
So I can highlight a region, send it to ChatGPT, it'll insert the results right back in the buffer, and I can just take it. It's pretty cool. Oh
my God.
It has been a productivity boost.
I've seen somebody write a ChatGPT software for MS-DOS. You can use DOS to chat to ChatGPT.
That's cool.
Oh, nice.
It is a very interesting thing. I haven't yet tried it, but I would love to see how it works.
Well, actually, maybe that's a good segue. Okay, so we've talked about the future. Let's rewind back. Talk about your vintage tech. And
My vintage tech.
Have you gotten any new acquisitions lately?
So recently, so for those of you who do not know me, I collect old computers. It's been a passion project of mine. Why? I have no idea. I love it. I think going back in history makes me respect what we have right now, from just the fact that we didn't have this much memory in the past to where are we going with all of these things. I just love to go step back in time and just do stuff. So my recent mania when it comes to old computers was portables. So we all have laptops right now. I have MacBook Air, weighs 2 pounds or whatnot. It's just super light, ultra. It fits in an envelope. It's just like insanely tiny laptops. And if you go back to 1984 or 1983, you have something like the Osborne 1 or the IBM 5155 or the Commodore SX64. So these are all portable computers.
Right.
When I say portable, I mean you can carry it.
If you really were determined.
So they're basically luggage size.
Correct.
And they're like 12 kilos or whatever that is in pounds, and you were intended to take them with you on an airplane. They have no batteries, none of that. You have to plug them in a wall. They have a very small screen, usually not very useful. But that's been like the beginnings of portable computer. They were technically called luggables,
Right.
because you lug them around. But that has been like kind of my latest thing. And I recently acquired, of course, the Osborne 1, the first portable computer. I have the IBM 5155, I have the Commodore SX64, I have a K-Pro 2, and I have a weird computer, like it's called a Zorba 1 or Zorba 2. It was made by a company in Florida, and it's the last CPM Z80 portable CPU computer. So I have a bunch of them at home, and I'm a big fan of them. They all look beautiful. I guess we could put a picture somewhere. I have them
Yeah,
somewhere.
we should definitely post a
So-
pic of all of this stuff.
Yeah. So that has kind of been my latest mania when it comes to old computers, and again, I'm just a fan because limited capacities. Again, remember these computers had like 64 kilobytes of RAM,
Right.
or less, and they were able to do productivity things. I have this Osborne 1. It has a 5-inch CRT display, so it's that
tiny.
big. And I have Lotus. Is it Lotus?
Lotus
1, 2, 3. Yes, Lotus 1, a spreadsheet. You have a spreadsheet software.
And
to
how
run
many
on a
cells
fiber.
could you see? You probably see 6 cells at once, right?
Maybe 6 cells at once, and it's like super tiny. And people used to use that for that, and that was a game changer,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh my god, I can take my
Yeah,
work
real
with me.
business and accounting.
Yeah.
I remember Jeff brought one home. It was about 7 or so, and I remember the keyboard kind of folding down and then popping out. I mean, it had a
Yes.
full size cast iron almost. I'm sure it was some kind of steel keyboard. Just popping out of the front, and then you see it looked like a little oscilloscope screen.
Yes, exactly.
It was cool.
It's amazing. And again, fantastic things. Never recommended to anybody to use, right? but they're beautiful. They're like they're really a piece of its time. It is something that's stuck in its own time.
I find it fascinating that with a lot of this old tech, you'd think that it's throwaway, but it forced you to do things. We talk a lot about productivity and efficiency and all of that right now, but today we just take a lot of that compute and memory for granted, and we don't think in terms of efficiency anymore. It's just kind of taken for granted, and you just kind of let it be. But I remember a time when we used to literally look for what you're putting in a register and how long you're keeping it there and what you need to swap out, or making sure that, when pipelining first came out in processors, we'd worry about, every time I have a conditional or jump statement that, happens in assembly, I'm flushing out the entire pipeline and kind of ruin, letting 3 instructions at a time kind of go waste. And so you'd kind of try and optimize, as much as possible to make sure that you could get stuff done quickly. And I think in like almost 2 decades, I've not heard of anyone who's cared about it or worried about it. And we'd have the compiler, optimization folks who care about it and figure out how to do stuff.
Maybe
a
some
little more.
HPC
Maybe.
folks. Yeah.
But by and large, I feel like that the thinking behind how to be efficient in the way you do things, we've kind of lost that somewhere down the line.
So to go back to cost optimization, I think the art of optimization is dead. We just have unlimited compute resources. like not maybe actually limited, but practically unlimited compute resources. And because, that's okay. I don't really care about that too much. And people just keep on making things which eat gigabytes and gigabytes of memory, need 16 cores to run.
Any Electron application, it seems like.
Any Electron application out there. Hi. So all of these things, just because we can. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. I think we should use the resources we have.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that the art of optimization, that the art of people just trying to, okay, let me make this work, has gone the way of the dodo.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody to write assembly anymore. Assembly shouldn't be written unless you're really into it. You shouldn't do it. Now, I've been playing around as it's just as a little fun project. I write assembly code for the Atari 2600. It's the game console. I do it because it has a very limited set of instructions, and it's a very limited machine.
Right.
So it has only 128 bytes of RAM.
Yeah.
So that's no memory, basically.
Correct.
And it's so it has no ROM. There's no ROM on it. The way it works is that, so on a modern computer, or even a Commodore 64, let's call that a modern computer.
Right.
To draw a pixel on the screen, in assembly you tell it, draw it at this location.
Right.
It will draw a character on that location.
Yeah.
And it will do it. You tell it, draw that, it will do that. On an Atari 2600, there's none of that. So to draw a pixel on, I don't know, Y20, X45, you can't just give it coordinates. You have to count how many lines has the beam drawn.
Got it.
And then on line 20, okay, now it's time to draw. But only a pixel on the location 45. How do I know how many there's to 45? I don't know. It takes 73 CPU cycles from this end to that end. So how much CPU cycles does it take from start to point 45? Oh, this much. And then you count down. Basically, you loop, or you have this much CPU cycles to do it.
Got it.
And then you draw a pixel. And that's just one pixel. So you have to have this like very complex, optimized way of writing software so it can be relatively fast and it can fit in the amount of restrictions you have. You should never do that. You should never do that.
Agreed.
But if you're interested in some fun activities or just trying to make yourself optimize things, it's fun.
It's just, I just feel like folks who've gone through that training think a little differently.
Yes.
You don't have to actually, I have not written assembly in 20 plus years. It's not that you have to write assembly, but to know what's happening under the hood makes a big difference in the kinds of decisions you make.
Absolutely.
And that background and that training really helps the way you think about things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I find missing in a lot of folks who are writing applications today. Like for me, like when I break down an algorithm, it's like some combination of sorting and searching and stuff like that, and I know what to expect in terms of how you would optimally organize all of that. And sometimes when I see how some things are done, they just seem so wasteful without considering, you know, how that'll scale or how that is going to impact performance even in the short term.
Yeah. I think it's also a fact that like people are struggling with thinking about things at scale, right? Oh, I just made this application work on my laptop. That's great. It works on a server. That's great. How about have that application be used by 1 million people?
Right.
How much does that increase the scale? So in assembly language, at least on 6502, you have 2 or 3 ways to like do something with numbers. One of those ways takes 5 CPU cycles. The other one takes 2.
Right.
Which one will you pick? You'll take the one with 2 because you save 3 CPU cycles.
Right.
It may not matter in the grand scheme of things, but to write an effective piece of software, you want to save as where you can.
Right.
And I would say that when it comes to like cloud, you're building an application, you're going to run it on an EC2 instance.
Yeah.
And then you decide, I'm going to go with the latest M5, whatever. Right? But do you need to do that? Maybe a previous generation or a Graviton instance or something smaller is sufficient enough for it. Can you make it work with less? Yes, of course you have more, but do you need more? So proper testing and kind of making those decisions. Do I need this? Will it affect the performance as much as it matters?
By the way, one clarification over there. I always ask every one of our customers or anyone that I speak to always modernize and get to the latest instance side, because
You
the
get
price
more.
performance ratio is always going to be better.
Yes.
So unlike if you are on-prem, you always think, hey, the minute I have a newer instance, it's going to cost money.
Of
Right?
course,
I mean,
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
mindset.
that's mindset, yeah.
Newer instance, more money. I don't want to do that. I want to push that out as much as possible. And I want to amortize my costs of whatever investment I've made, right? When it comes to the cloud, however, and specifically with AWS, I keep telling everybody, modernize. Get to the latest generation of the machines, because you pretty much get the price performance benefit for free.
Yes.
If you can just keep getting to the latest version,
Exactly.
you are going to be, like, even if you do nothing else, that's one of the easiest ways to make sure that you're being efficient, at least at the at
It
the
could
surface
potentially
level.
go an instant size down, right? If the next generation is so much better,
Correct. You can
go
size down.
Size down. Yeah.
So modernize very quickly and then right size in the latest version or the latest generation of things.
And I guess back in an optimization context, right, we're optimizing for the developer experience, the developer time, and then
Correct.
using say CloudFix, we can kind of clean up afterwards, right? Like you say, okay, my OpenSearch cluster is going to need 10 terabytes. I'm sure of it. And then I put 1 terabyte in there, and then okay, we'll come up afterwards and let's make it 1.3 terabytes. Room to grow, but you don't need 10. Just trying to get that balance, right?
Always just because we think we know we have unlimited resources in storage and compute doesn't mean that we should all use that.
Yeah.
So I think just taking a step back and creating a cost optimization engineer or just optimization engineer would be a great thing in your team or something, or use a service or a tool.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
It is interesting, like you said, scale is where the perception changes. I remember I wrote one program once that was, it solved this case of dynamic programming problems where you had to kind of enumerate this big space of solutions and basically try every one and then work backwards. I said, okay, this is great. It worked on my example. And I wrote it in Python when I was first learning that. I said, great, I don't have to use fixed size arrays. This will work for any problem space. And I plugged in this problem I wanted to solve, and it said, I couldn't create an array of 80 quintillion elements. Oh, shit. I've run out of RAM. I thought, okay, now I need to change my approach because things kind of blow up at scale when you're dealing with multiplicative problems or exponential problems.
And I think what you're talking about here is like a language choice or whatnot. I think also language choice depends on what you're doing. Sometimes it can be more expensive to use Python because Python is actually one of the least optimized languages as of now. I think
3.11.
3.11 is better.
Way more optimized.
Okay.
Like it's
Right.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. In fact, 3.7 goes into end of life shortly.
Shortly, yeah. Okay.
And 3.11, if you haven't tried that yet,
Okay.
it's remarkable.
In any case, it was one of the least efficient languages, and but that would be okay if you were looking for efficiency in development, because like if you feel like, okay, my team are all data engineers, they don't want to learn Rust or whatnot. So the loss of speed is gonna make it up in the loss of, or the gain when it comes to.
Yeah, it's all a trade-off at the end.
It's a trade-off. Yeah.
It's
So
a trade-off you have to make to figure out what is the net effect of your decisions that you're making.
But I want to stay on the topic of optimization. I'm actually working on a blog post where it's kind of the same cost optimization plus old computers. So I'm working on a blog post where I'm gonna test the power to compute ratio of computers. Right. I have my Raspberry Pi. I have my MacBooks. I have my 2005 Xeon workstation. I have my Power PC from 1997. I have my Silicon Graphics workstation from 1995. I even have, and I haven't gotten this to work yet, but I have a mini PC, a mini computer. It's a Data General Eclipse.
Oh wow!
Full rack of mini computer, and that thing, if it runs all together with all of the elements, it needs a 50 amp circuit.
Is that 3-phase 440?
No, it's 120 because it's a computer. It's a 120 power supply. So what I'm working on is I'm going to try to run a similar workload, whatever that means, a prime number calculation or whatnot.
Got it.
On multiple different systems to see how much energy they use to do that, and make a wonderful little chart to compare how my M1 Mac for $600 and a watt of power compares to a Silicon Graphics workstation that costs $35,000.
You should include an iPhone.
An iPhone
in
as well.
the mix of all the computers that you would end up using today. I mean,
Well, I'd imagine your Apple M series is going to do.
Oh, yeah.
Just a bit. That's gonna win it. Right?
I think that's the winner for all. But like, it's interesting how you can compare. Like, I have a Sun Microsystems. It's an Ultra 60. It's a workstation from 1998, I think, or something like that. It's a wonderful piece of hardware. It was amazing back then. It's around Solaris 9.
That was in the era of the pizza boxes, right?
So this was a tower. This is post pizza boxes. It's kind of the same generation, but it's a big old tower. and it has dual CPUs, dual 400 Spark CPUs, Spark 64, 600 megahertz each. Yeah, and on idle, just turning it on, 600 watts, just running. So, and it has less power than the Raspberry Pi. So, not the latest Raspberry Pi, like the Raspberry Pi 2. So it's interesting to compare. And this comes into sustainability as well, but it's interesting to compare how something that used to be really good, used to be top of the line, just by time, loses it.
Changes.
Well, it's neat with EC2 pricing, right? So it's basically a proxy for power prices, which is what it all comes down to.
Exactly.
These things take a lot of power. Well, this has been a really fun discussion.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on pretty much for hours, but I know we have a show that has a time limit on it. But Darko, thank you so much once again for coming to the show. We really enjoyed this, and hopefully we can do more of these in-person sessions.
Yeah.
This has been fascinating and really fun to do the in-person ones versus over the internet.
I've been doing a lot of them like just online, and it's good, but it's not the same thing.
It's not the same.
The whole studio feel here and everything. We have the coffee, we have the water.
Absolutely.
We want to give a gift to our in-person studio residents. I found this at a garage sale. It's made in Japan in like 1983. It's got a thermal printer.
Oh yeah.
It's still got the manual too, I think.
Oh my god. Thank you.
No problem.
Another one for your collection.
Oh my god.
So
I wonder if the thermal paper still works.
we might have to clean out some of the contacts in
It
there.
has
But,
very old batteries.
so I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It has Energizer batteries, but with the old logo. And when I say old, I mean I've never seen it before. So I love it. Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan of thermal paper. I'm gonna make this work.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Once
I
again,
really
thank
appreciate
you
this.
for being on the show, and really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Darko.
Look at that. Amazing.
Awesome.
Ooh,
This is so much fun.
I mean, you should definitely do this with more people. Get more Amazonians.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry because CloudFix fixers are AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost savings opportunities and doesn't just find them. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part is that it works non-stop. See for yourself. Click on the button to get a free demonstration of CloudFix and stop overspending on